People who know me would call me many things, but gullible is not one of them. My name is Walter Stanos, yes, Stanos, as in Stanos United Realty, the largest real estate corporation in Greenwell, Illinois. People often say that Charles Stanos, my father, owns half the city. As his only son, my stepmother and I are his only heirs. As a high school teacher, I didn't inherit my father's ruthless business sense, but I did inherit his ability to read people very well. This works very well in the classroom, as it does with one of the most eligible bachelors in town. Almost as soon as I started high school, I realized that girls were after me because they saw my trust fund as a golden ticket. I learned early on not to trust women's attention. I'm sure I've rejected some who were genuinely interested in me, even those I initially pursued, but then questioned why they wanted to be with me. When I was in college, I realized that this attitude towards women would lead to me growing up old and alone. I met Natalie in my third year. She was also studying to become a teacher only in elementary school, and I was about to enter high school. When I first saw her, I completely fell in love with her. She had such an exotic look, as if she was either part Hispanic or part black. Height 5 feet 7 inches, dark skin, long curly black hair, full lips, breasts at least D and toned legs, the definition of muscles visible from her calves to her upper thighs in the short shorts she wore. I admit, I became shallow the moment I approached her, thinking that even if she just wanted me for my money, it would be worth it if I slept with her one day. Natalie didn't recognize me because I was from out of town and didn't fall for my stupid pickup line. I was refused, just like a vegan was offered a T-bone steak. However, I didn't let it end. I saw her at a party a month later. Luckily, I was relatively sober. I put on my charm, apologized for being rude earlier, and asked if there was anything I could do to prove I wasn't such a jerk. She said dancing with her would be a good start. It was just one dance, and I didn't try anything other than asking for her number after. She refused, but said to say hi if I saw her around. A week later, I spotted her in the cafeteria and insisted on buying her lunch. Our conversation was going so well that we both skipped the next class. That's when we learned that we both wanted to be teachers, and we had many other similar interests, such as outdoor activities and camping. I also found Natalie to be one of the nicest people I have ever met. I think it was there, over a cold burrito, that my passion began to turn into love. I finally got her number, and we had our first date that evening. She apologized for not being ready to invite me, but I was absolutely delighted. A month later, we were already discussing the possibility of living together. My father, of course, was skeptical when I told him that Natalie was the one and that I was going to propose. My mother died when I was 10. Dad already had wife number 2, who divorced him after I went to college. However, my dad kept the engagement ring he gave my mom and promised her that I could have it when I was ready. After 9 months of dating, Natalie finally met my father and was shocked to learn that I had enough money in my trust fund to retire. Although I allowed my dad to pay for my education, I worked part-time to support myself. Despite my upbringing, I preferred the simple life. Perhaps that's why I love hiking so much. Dad, of course, very quickly warmed to Natalie. I didn't like that he was ogling my girlfriend, but I liked that he took the time to really talk to her and see what I saw in my potential wife. Before we left, he spoke to me privately and gave me his blessing, but insisted that his lawyer draw up a prenuptial agreement. Money wasn't a big issue for either of us, so I didn't want to push the issue. A month later, on Valentine's Day, I proposed over dinner. Natalie squealed, she was so excited, and cried as she put the ring on. We spent the entire morning cuddled in bed, naked, completely content. When my father raised the issue of a prenuptial agreement during wedding plans with Natalie's parents, her father flew into a rage. I really thought the two fathers-in-law would start throwing punches. In fact, I didn't hear from Natalie for 3 days after that. She ignored all my calls and messages, making me think that the wedding was canceled. When Natalie finally contacted me, she asked if I thought she wanted my money. I told her that of course not. Natalie then said that she agreed to sign the agreement. The wedding went off without problems, and the feud seemed to subside due to the agreement. However, my father getting drunk and flirting too much with Natalie's mother, who reminded me of Hal Berry in appearance, did cause some controversy. Natalie was disappointed that her best friend Travis, whom she hadn't seen since we started dating, couldn't make it. Apparently, he was doing relief work in Africa and was unable to leave. He sent a birthday card with a photo of him on an elephant, which Natalie kept next to her bed. After that, things settled into a routine. We both graduated, got teaching jobs in the same area of town, and bought a house with money from my trust fund. It was planned that Natalia would work for a year, and then we would start a family. Things got hectic as the year progressed as we were both teaching, but we always found time to date, and Natalie was willing to start fooling around anywhere. We never did anything too outrageous as teachers. We weren't about to risk our careers over some public scandal. Natalie was the love and passion of my life. Since we both had the summer off, I was expecting a real sex fest while we worked on getting pregnant. I was right about the first part, but Natalie wanted to wait another year. She was not ready to leave teaching for even a year, and since neither of us was yet 25 years old, we had time. They trusted me again and bought a cabin on a lake about 4 hours outside of town. It was quite secluded, with most of the cabins located on several acres of land. This meant that other than the boats on the lake, we saw almost no one while we were there. There was a public picnic area and restroom shower area, but the only person we encountered there was a park employee restocking the toilet paper. That first summer, we spent 2 weeks camping, then 2 weeks at home, and so on throughout the summer season. We discussed going somewhere else, but decided that just being in nature and having sex outdoors frequently was enough for us. The next school year went even better than the first. As before, it was hard work, but we both really loved what we did. I've heard that if you put a marble in a jar every time you have sex in the first year of marriage, and then take one out every time you have sex after, the jar will never be empty. This definitely didn't happen for us. Our libidos were still high. I thought that I was the happiest person in the world. Just before the end of the school year, I was stunned when Natalie traded in her car for a van. Carrying camping gear around in one of our tiny sedans was getting really cramped, but I expected we would upgrade our vehicle to an SUV or pickup truck. The fact that Natalie did this without consulting me was surprising and made me a little angry. However, I quickly calmed down when she seduced me in the back of the van and told me as she drove me backwards that it was the perfect family car. As we hugged in the back seat, she confirmed that she would stop taking birth control pills at the end of the summer and would aim to finish the next school year and begin her maternity leave next summer. This time, I think I screamed with joy and began to love that damn van, which I ended up driving all the time because of what it symbolized in that moment. My first trip to the cabin made me really appreciate our new van. We could easily take everything we wanted for the entire summer without feeling claustrophobic. A week before our second trip, Natalie was more excited than ever. Her friend Travis was back in the country for a short time, and she invited him and her friend Rochelle to join us at the lake for a couple of weeks. Although our cabin had a master bedroom with a queen bed and 2 other bedrooms, I was a little disappointed that I wouldn't be able to have some alone time with my wife. I also thought it would be better for them to make up for lost time in the city. And why was Rochelle needed? She was Natalie's friend from college, but not one of her closest friends. We usually spent time with couples similar to us, although we were the only ones without children, while Rochelle was a little younger and never seemed to have a boyfriend for more than a month. Natalie said she wanted someone else there so there wouldn't be a third wheel. It seemed logical to me. A single, attractive woman for her single, attractive friend. I still didn't want to waste our alone time at the lake, but I figured it was only for 2 weeks, and I was being selfish considering how long they hadn't seen each other. Rochelle worked as a receptionist, so she was working on Friday when we were getting ready to leave. Her work was located in the city center, which was close to the airport. The plan was that Rochelle would go straight to the airport with her things after work. Travis' plane will arrive around 4, so he'll be through customs by 5. We'll drive there around 5:30, pick them both up, buy some takeout, and drive 4 hours to the cabin. I'd seen that photo of Travis on our bedside table for years, but that didn't prepare me for seeing him in person. I'm 5 feet 11 inches tall, weighing about 160 pounds, mostly lean muscle from an active lifestyle. Travis looked like an action hero. Blonde hair, blue eyes, at least 6.5 feet tall with bulging biceps and shoulders. He looked like he could pick me up like a doll and throw me around. Rochelle, a tall, slender brunette with short hair, looked at him with admiration as we pulled up. I admit, with both girls in sexy summer dresses, I felt like the ugly duckling in this company. Travis, Natalie squealed, running to hug her friend, who lifted her off the ground. I walked over to shake his hand, and he squeezed it too hard, saying he wasn't sure I was good enough for his girlfriend. I think Natalie read my face and quickly said, "He's joking, of course. I told him everything about you. He's really happy for me." Travis didn't acknowledge her words, instead focusing on his sister. They told stories from their past, and he shared tales of Africa while I sat awkwardly with Rochelle, whom I barely knew. They sat together at dinner, and Travis insisted that Natalie sit behind him so they could continue to catch up. Rochelle sat in the front seat, and we tried to make small talk throughout the 4-hour drive. About 90 minutes into the drive, Natalie and Travis complained that they were cold. I turned on the heater, which I already thought was a completely normal temperature. "It's okay, Wally, there's a blanket here," Natalie said and covered herself with it along with her friend, continuing the conversation. My wife usually only used this nickname in the bedroom or when she wanted something from me, and never in front of strangers. After that, their conversations became quieter, although I could hear my wife laughing. Of course, with the radio and the noise of the wind, it would be difficult to hear their normal conversation. I tried to carry on a conversation with Rochelle, who I realized I really liked now that I got to know her better. Then I noticed it in the rearview mirror, out of the corner of my eye. I looked again to make sure. I saw movement under the blanket, and if I didn't know better, I would have thought Travis had his hand dangerously close to my wife's legs. I looked at her face. Obviously, she liked it. I brushed the thought off, thinking it was just jealousy of Travis. He had my wife's attention, but he was only here for 2 weeks, and then he would be gone again for who knows how long. I was concentrating on the road and talking to Rochelle when I heard my wife scream. I quickly looked in the mirror, and it was obvious that they were hugging, but of course it was friendly. My wife was very tactile and hugged even our male friends all the time. Of course, if I didn't know my wife so well, I would probably suspect that something intimate was going on. "Hey, I'm tired after the flight. I'll just lay in the back," Travis said loudly so I could hear him clearly, having not heard a word from them for the last 20 minutes. "I'm tired too, it's been a long day," Natalie said, her voice out of breath. "I'll join you. Do you mind, Wally? Wake us up when we arrive." Considering that she didn't wait for my answer, I simply nodded and waved my hand. I noticed Rochelle turn around and make a funny face. We went back to discussing the TV series we were both watching. It was significantly darker from the middle part of the cabin to the back, except when an oncoming car illuminated us, which happened infrequently. I only saw shadows in the back seat and couldn't hear anything. I felt like I was seeing more movement than I should be, but I was sure that my eyes were tired and playing a cruel joke on me. As I turned onto the gravel road about 10 minutes before the cabin, I heard loud yawns behind me. Travis sat up and moved to the middle seat, while Natalie remained lying there, still covered with the blanket. "Hey, is this the toilet?" Travis said as we were near a public picnic area with showers and toilets. "Stop, I really need it." I stopped, and he jumped out of the car, and I drove further to the house. I parked, and Natalie immediately jumped out, still wrapped in the blanket and holding her bag. "Hey, honey, I need to take a quick shower after the trip, before going to bed. You do not mind?" "I don't mind at all," I said. "Give me a minute, I'll join you." "It's okay, Walter. Rochelle will come with me. Besides, you need to be here for Travis to find the house. You don't mind sorting things out without me, right?" She smiled a strange smile. "Do you mind if I leave you with this?" "Sure, I'll take a shower in the morning," I said, watching Natalie, still wrapped in the blanket, set off down the path with Rochelle. I had already completely unloaded and was sitting relaxing with a beer on the street when Travis approached, or rather, he strutted. His hair was wet, so I was the only one who didn't shower that night. "Would you like a beer?" I said, pointing to the cooler. "Do you know how unhealthy this is?" Travis replied, wrinkling his nose in disgust. "I'm sure Natalie brought water. I will take it." He went into the house and came out with a bottle of water that my wife brought. So it must be strange to come back to civilization and then go into nature for 2 weeks, I said, half laughing. The guy looked at me as if I had spoiled the air. "Compared to places I've lived, this is paradise. You don't even know how easy life is for you, rich boy." "I'm sure I don't know," I said almost bitterly. "But this Rochelle is cute," Travis said, breaking the awkward silence. "Have you ever?" "No, I was married when I met her, and I'm more than happy with my wife," I replied. "Okay, then do you mind if I seduce her tonight?" "I don't care, do what you want," I said coldly, deciding that I didn't like this guy. "So you're rich, but just a teacher." "I teach history and English." "Yes," Travis responded, sounding more insulting than just a teacher. "How are my two favorite men getting along?" Natalie said happily, approaching Rochelle and me along the path. There was no blanket with them, so my wife changed into leggings and a t-shirt, and Rochelle was in the same summer dress, but with wet hair. "Just wonderful," Travis said, standing up to hug her. "Walter set up a cot and sleeping bag for you." "I don't know, but if I haven't installed it, I can handle it," Travis said boastfully. "Should we scare you with bears to make you feel at home?" Natalie teased, then yelped when he started tickling her. She responded in kind by tickling his knees, and they both laughed. "Sorry, but I'm an indoor cat, and I guess I need help with my bed if it's not ready," Rochelle said. "Well, I'm sure Travis would be happy to help and show off his survival skills," I said cheerfully. Natalie looked at me as if I had said something wrong. "Anyway, I think everyone is tired," I added. "Natalie and I are getting ready for bed. See you in the morning. If you need something, just take it." "Don't worry about me, I know how to do it," Travis said with a wink. I figured he was going to hit on Rochelle while he was setting up their beds. When we entered our bedroom, Natalie began to sort our things into the closets. She had a tense face and did not look at me. "Is there something wrong?" I asked quietly, knowing that the walls here were quite thin. We could hear Rochelle and Travis laughing from the next room. "Nothing," Natalie answered quickly and then sighed. "You're being rude to Travis." "Am I being rude? He's rude to me, acting like he's so much better." I gestured towards the door. "He lived in remote areas of Africa. I think he's earned the right to be a little cocky." Natalie continued to stand with her back to me. "I'm your husband. I think you shouldn't tolerate your friend disrespecting me in my house." "Our house. Can we just go to bed and forget about this?" Natalie pulled back the blanket and lay down. "Please turn off the lamp." "Do you sleep in this?" "My wife usually sleeps naked at home, except for a few days a month. Sleeping in leggings and a t-shirt was the first time in the entire time I've known her." I froze. "I remember you were frozen in the van. Are you okay? You know body heat is the best way to stay warm." I said this in my most flirtatious tone. "I'm fine," Natalie said sharply, "and I'm definitely not going to do anything with my friends in the next room. If you have a problem, you can sleep there." I stripped down to my underpants and clung to my wife. At least she allowed it. "I'm serious, Nat," I said as calmly as possible. "Something is wrong with you. What's happening?" I, forget it," she replied, and it looked like she was about to cry. "Baby, talk to me. We've never had trouble talking before." "I stopped taking birth control, okay," Natalie said, crying. "I wanted to surprise you after Travis left, but I think my hormones have gone crazy. Seeing Travis again, my emotions were just out of control. I didn't want to take it out on you. Sorry. Everything is fine. I love you." "Love you too, Wally." I fell asleep hugging her. I was still holding her when I woke up at dawn, probably 4 in the morning. I heard creaks and loud moans. Apparently, Travis still seduced Rochelle in the next room. Considering he didn't care what we heard, he's entertaining Rochelle, I gently touched Natalie's breasts through her t-shirt, teasingly, knowing it would wake her up. She reacted by pushing my hand away and angrily whispering, "Walter," I said no. "SHH," I said as I started kissing her neck. I moved my hand to the front of her belt. "Damn, I said no," Natalie hissed, pushing my hand away and moving away from me on the bed. I got up around the same time as Travis and Rochelle, who had apparently spent the night in the same room. The smell of sex was still in the air when they went to freshen up. I had no intention of being in the man's shower with Travis, so I enjoyed a cup of coffee. As soon as he returned, I went to shower and met Rochelle on the path, who blushed when she saw me. I figured she was embarrassed because she knew I heard her and Travis. When I returned to the cabin, feeling clean and refreshed, Natalie had just woken up. It seemed like 3 people were arguing as soon as she woke up, and I interrupted them when I entered. "To hell with it, I can't handle this right now." "I'll go for a walk," Natalie said, looking at me angrily as she passed by. "Darling?" I said, holding out my hand, not knowing what had upset her so much. "Not now, Walter," Natalie replied sharply and slammed the door, leaving the house. Travis and Rochelle looked at me as if they were equally surprised by my wife's outburst. "I better go get her," I said, and Rochelle nodded. "No, it's my fault," Travis said. "I'll go talk to her. Give us some time, okay?" He left, and I went to pour myself another cup of coffee. Rochelle had a very strange expression on her face. She shook her head. "What?" I asked. "That really wasn't a good idea," she said quietly. "Why?" I asked, looking into her face. I think I saw guilt and nervousness. At this point, things started to become clearer, at least to the point that something was wrong. I guessed that Natalie would not take the public path, most likely the forest path where we often walked, or had picnics that sometimes ended in outdoor sex. As I approached the picnic area, which was overgrown after years of neglect, but still had a table, I heard voices. I approached very carefully so as not to be noticed. I heard them before I saw them. I didn't believe what I heard. When I saw them through the trees, everything turned upside down in my soul. My beautiful wife had sex with her friend. I wondered for a moment whether I should step in and fight for my wife. Physically, I knew I wasn't Travis' equal, and considering she was letting him tell me, there was no point. I decided I couldn't stay married to Natalie after this. I recorded about 10 seconds of video on my phone, then turned and headed back to the cabin. I think the look on my face told Rochelle what I saw. Without saying a word, I went into the master bedroom and started packing all of our things, including my wife's things. "I just found out about it last night when we were in the shower," Rochelle said. "I'm sorry, she made me promise not to tell you. She said it would only be for the weekend, and then everything would go back to normal. Natalie said she would explain and make sure you were okay with it." I finished packing and dragged my bag to the van, Rochelle following behind me. "She loves you. She told me that you were the father type and—" I stopped and looked at her. "Do you want to stay, or are you going to pack your things too?" "Please, she loves you. I know he loves it. Natalie really hoped you would be okay with this." Rochelle stammered and walked back into the house. I followed her as she quickly gathered her things. How the hell could she expect me to be okay with her sleeping with another man, especially someone who disrespects me? Rochelle picked up her bag, smiled apologetically, and shrugged. I rolled my eyes. I walked into Travis's room and grabbed his suitcase, which he hadn't even had time to unpack, except for a used condom on the floor. Apparently, Rochelle made sure he used protection. When I threw his bag into the van and Rochelle put hers in, everything fell into place. Natalie got angry this morning because she was jealous that Travis spent the night with Rochelle. Rochelle was there for me, not him, and it hurt Natalie that Travis seduced her friend. This fact showed me clearly where I stand in the eyes of my wife. She was ready to share me, but not to share her friend. Our phones lay on the counter, charging. I took Natalie's phone and mine and debated whether to leave right now. Walter, please. She messed up, but she loves you. It was just a fling. Don't leave her because of this. You mean the world to her, Rochelle insisted. So, let's check it out. Let him prove that he chooses me and not him, I said. If she chooses me, I'll give her a chance, with counseling or whatever. But if she chooses him, I don't want anything to do with her anymore. I told Rochelle my plan, including what I was going to do if she chose Travis. Honestly, even if Natalie chose me, I wasn't planning on working on the relationship, but I wasn't going to tell her friend that. Rochelle was silent and then said, "Okay, I agree with your plan. If she chooses him, honestly, I wouldn't want to be her friend anymore, so it doesn't matter. But I repeat, she loves you, and no chance that she will not choose you." I cut the thigh with a small kitchen knife. It was a barely noticeable scratch, but deep enough to draw blood. Rochelle took a towel and added some raw steak blood to make the stain bigger. I wish she had thought of that before I actually hurt myself. She held the towel against my thigh as we waited for the lovers to return. As soon as we saw them coming, I started screaming. "What's happening?" Natalie said, looking really flushed and guilty. I didn't see any alarm on her face, although perhaps I saw what I expected to see. "It's nothing. Your friend is just overacting," I said, barely containing the pain. "This is no small thing, you need stitches," Rochelle said sternly. She looked at my wife. "Walter stepped on a rotten board and hit a nail, which tore his muscle. He needs to go to the doctor. The closest one is in Willowfall, an hour's drive from here." "You have the keys, so you can drive him," Travis said, adding with a grin. "Hurry up so he doesn't have to have his leg amputated." Rochelle said and looked straight at Natalie. Natalie looked at me and then at Travis, who raised his eyebrows at her. "Well, Wally says it's not that bad. I can cook a great breakfast before you get back. Okay?" The disappointment on my face was completely genuine, and Natalie looked away. "Natalie," Rochelle said in complete bewilderment. "Take him and call him if it's serious," Natalie said quickly, following Travis into the cabin without looking back at me. Rochelle pretended to help me into the van and then drove off. She shook her head. "I cannot believe it. She didn't even check how serious the wound was, didn't even wish you a speedy recovery. I'm so sorry. I can't believe he has so much control over her." "Wait, stop here," I said when we reached the shower station. "Turn left and follow that road. It leads right behind our house." "Are you still serious about doing this?" Rochelle asked. "Revenge time for the lover boy," I chuckled. We parked around the bend and approached the house quietly. Rochelle and I approached cautiously. As I expected, we already heard groans and sighs. From the sounds of the bed creaking, they were in the master bedroom, just as I thought. To be sure, I opened all 3 bedroom windows before reenacting the injury. There was a long shovel against the back wall, which I carefully took along with the axe. When I returned from the forest after catching the lovers cheating, I noticed a nest of wasps in a tree. Rochelle remained at the back wall of the house, holding Natalie's unlocked phone. With one movement, I knocked down the nest with an axe so that it fell onto the shovel. As the angry insects began to circle, I turned around and, like a lacrosse player, threw the nest through the open window onto the bed. Some kind of miracle, I only got one bite on my arm. Judging by the screams, Travis and Natalie weren't so lucky. I heard their screams, then the sound of the house door opening, more screams and splashing when they jumped into the lake. I slowly walked towards the van, expecting Rochelle to quickly take a video and run back to the car. Considering how long she was taking, I was worried that she had changed her mind or that Travis had done something to her. "Rochelle, you're a fucking bitch. Is this what you're doing?" I heard Natalie scream. "I will kill you both. Do you even know who you contacted?" Travis growled angrily. At that moment, I saw Rochelle rushing towards the van, laughing. She had a pile of clothes in her hands. I ran after her, and we jumped into the van and quickly drove away. There were clothes on the floor that Travis and Natalie were wearing when we left them. These idiots took off their clothes right outside the door and left them lying in the kitchen. I didn't see any wasps inside, so I just grabbed it after they ran out and jumped into the lake, Rochelle said with a proud smile. I smiled back, imagining their reaction when they realized that I had all their clothes and towels. Did you make a video? Rochelle held Natalie's phone, smiling. I smiled back. Damn, I can't believe it worked. My excitement quickly faded when I realized that it worked because my wife was so caught up in sex with her friend that she didn't notice my bleeding leg, which could have been serious, or didn't notice that I had packed up all my things. After 2 truly happy years together, I meant no more to her than some ex-lover. Hey, you're a good guy, Rochelle said, touching my shoulder. You didn't deserve this. It's not your fault, you know. Except that I wasn't good enough for her, I said sadly. Except that I have a rich father and a big trust fund. Listen, Walter, Nat and I weren't as close as we used to be, Rochelle began. But we were close when you first started dating. I know she just ruined your relationship, but she really was crazy about you long before she found out about your father and how much money you really had. She was talking about this cute guy who was funny and very nice, and I never heard her complain about sex with you, and she was the type to complain. Long before you proposed to her, she knew you were the one. I chuckled coldly. So you think I should give her another chance? Just knowing that your wife is a good friend of mine, if I saw you with a towel full of blood, I would want to go with you to make sure you were okay, Rochelle said and shook her head. When you suggested this, I thought, how stupid. Of course, she will go with her husband for treatment. What will this prove? How did you know she would stay with him? I sighed. I did not know. I know his type. He would think it would be a great opportunity to stay alone with Natalie in the cabin for a few hours. I was really hoping she would come with me, and then I could talk to her. I knew if she stayed it wouldn't be worth it, and she really meant it. What do you mean? Rochelle asked. I quickly opened the photos and handed her my phone so she could see the short video I took. Rochelle put my phone down. She was silent for a few moments, then said, Listen, although I know what he meant, I'm sure for Natalie it was just words in the heat of passion. We say things like this in the moment without thinking, basically what we think the guy wants to hear. I told you, she never complained about sex with you. But she didn't brag about how amazing it was, did she? I said bitterly. She must have said something about him. I mean, you slept with him last night too. Did you want to check if what she said was true? It was a mistake. Yes, he looks amazing and was flirting with me before you arrived. Okay, Natalie said last night that he's not the guy for a relationship. He's a guy for sex. I don't need to hear this. We heard you last night, the walls are thin. You need to hear this. I think it's all in her head, just a tale of long-lost forbidden love. If I were to rate him on a scale of 10, it would be a maximum of 6.5 and 0.5 purely for his appearance. I smiled and shook my head. You're just trying to cheer me up, but thank you. Are you hungry? I think there's a good diner in the next town. I wish I could, Rochelle smiled. We talked over a greasy breakfast about other topics that didn't involve Natalie and Travis. Just like on the trip, I discovered that we have much more in common than I thought. I once classified her as one of the superficial beauties who played on the field because no one was good enough. In fact, she admitted she was more focused on work and tired of guys who just wanted to drink or seduce her, which she seemed to be attracted to. I played the video that Rochelle made. It started with a side view of the house. The door was not visible, but the rug in front of it was visible. You could hear screams and the sound of bare feet running across the wooden floor. The door suddenly burst open and Natalie jumped out first, completely naked, screaming and waving her arms as several wasps circled around her. Travis came out next, also naked and semi-erect, pushing her to the side, almost throwing her down the stairs, also waving his arms at the angry insects. Both ran to the pier and almost simultaneously jumped into the lake. Rochelle can be heard laughing as 2 heads emerge from under the water, and looked directly at her. Their faces changed from fear to anger. Natalie glared at Rochelle, screaming, "Rochelle, you're a fucking bitch. Is this what you're doing?" And the video stopped. "Pretty good photography skills, huh?" Rochelle said, looking over my shoulder with a grin. "I'm guessing you have a devilish reason why you wanted me to use her phone and not mine." "Not diabolical, just a little fairness," I replied with a grin. I opened Snapchat, edited the video, added the caption at the bottom, "Swimming naked with my lover while my husband is not around," and posted it. I'm sure some of her family, friends, and colleagues will see this before it is deleted. This should be enough to get her fired from her job. I'll leave the real incriminating video for my divorce lawyer. Thank God I have a reinforced concrete marriage contract. We continued on our way, and 20 minutes later, Natalie's phone lit up with messages. I turned it off and continued getting to know Rochelle. We had been driving almost 20 minutes into town when Rochelle suddenly went silent. I turned around, and there was a strange look on her face. Something was probably bothering her. I thought it was guilt for helping ruin her friend's career and possibly her personal life. I decided not to ask. "Walter, I lied a little," Rochelle said. "Fine." I got a little tense. Was she in cahoots with Natalie from the start and just pretending? My trust in women was pretty low at that point. "I know you understood from my hint that when Natalie confessed what was going on between her and Travis in the shower, the reason for my presence was to seduce you. She wanted me to do this, and then she would forgive you, but only if she could have fun with Travis." I nodded. Yes, I understood that she expected us to get together while she was with him. I just didn't understand the part about seduction. It wouldn't have worked then. "Yes, I told her that, but she said it would work, and that Travis would help by getting you very drunk that day. When he came into my room and started kissing me, Walter, I hoped that if I gave in, he would forget about Natalie and stay with me. That's why I didn't mind when he insisted on going to his room next to yours so you both could hear. This way your marriage would not be in jeopardy. If the van was the only case, even if you found out about it, I'm sure you would forgive her." In the morning, Natalie yelled at me that I ruined everything, and that you wouldn't want me after hearing how Travis entertained me all night. "Why are you telling me this?" I felt a little bad about what she said. "Listen, a guy like Travis goes for quantity over quality. Even if there were 2 other women there, he would try to seduce them all and still go after Natalie. Guys like that only feel good when they do stuff like that. I'm telling you I lied. You really like me, especially after I got to know you better. Honestly, the only reason I was with Travis for you to hear was because I didn't want your marriage to end, but after what she did, she doesn't deserve a second chance. But you deserve it," Rochelle said. "What do you mean?" "I mean, if both were available, I would choose you over Travis without question. Now that you are going to be free, I want to go to your home. I want to have sex with you if you're interested." My eyes widened. I turned around, and she kissed me on the lips, Van a little skidded. I think I had the biggest smile on my face in days. I smiled. "Yes, I'm interested." 2 days later, I was sitting in the kitchen, drinking coffee and reading a fishing magazine, when there was a sharp knock on the door. I opened it, and Natalie angrily walked inside wearing hideous purple sweatpants and a tacky lake camping t-shirt. "Where's my phone, Walter?" she said angrily. I pointed to the living room where all her things were packed and waiting for her. I noticed that there were painful red marks from wasp stings on her arms, face, and neck. There were also fresh hickey marks on the neck. "You had to pull this damn prank without waiting for me to explain," Natalie hissed. "Instead, you post this damn video with a baseless accusation that probably cost me my job. And you leave us without clothes, phones, and money. We had to walk a couple of miles, wrapped in sheets, to get to the phone. My mother was completely mad at me, so Travis' friend wired us money so we could move back to town. Unreasonable?" I said coldly and turned on the video of them having sex so that she could hear my words. Her face changed and I saw guilt, but there were no tears. "Wally, you don't understand. This was only supposed to happen once. Rochelle should have seduced you and everything would have been fair. How could you be so stupid? I told you I won't do this, said a female figure from another room. Natalie looked on in shock as Rochelle walked into the living room, wearing one of Natalie's robes and apparently nothing underneath. What is she doing here? Natalie said coldly. None of your business, I shouted. You lied and cheated on me. She didn't show me any respect as her husband, so we're breaking up. You signed a prenup, so you won't get anything for cheating, although I'll let you keep the van. After what you did to him, I don't want to see him again. Please, Wally. I made a mistake, but I love you. It only happened once, it won't happen again. Besides, you had fun too, right? Natalie started crying. I love you, not him, please. It's official, Rochelle said, crossing her arms. I just stayed to console a friend who is experiencing his wife's betrayal. Good luck proving something more. Unofficially, you claimed that Travis is a sex god, and that's why you needed to spend another weekend with him. Well, I was with both of them for 24 hours. Perhaps if you did the same, you would realize that Walter is twice the best lover. You're a bitch, Natalie stopped mid-sentence, her eyes widening. I noticed that Rochelle did the same, her mouth opening to scream. Before her scream could be heard, the wind was knocked out of me as I was roughly tackled from behind, falling to the floor with a crash. Travis, don't hurt him. Natalie screamed over Rochelle's scream as blows rained down on my back. Do you even know who you messed with? Travis growled, flipping me onto my back. I managed to knee him in the groin, causing him to gasp in pain. I pushed him to the side so I could start to get to my feet. I saw Rochelle holding the phone, probably calling 911, and Natalie had already disappeared. When Travis came towards me again, I tried to punch him in the face, but he pulled away and the punch landed on his shoulder. I tried again, but he parried my blow and then hit me hard in the stomach, bending me in half. In addition to his strength, Travis clearly had some martial arts training. I was out of breath and didn't have the strength to push him away. I started seeing spots in front of my eyes as I started to lose consciousness. Right before I blacked out, I heard a loud crack that sounded like a gunshot. The next 2 months passed in a blur. I regained consciousness in the ambulance taking me to the hospital with Rochelle holding my hand. Natalie grabbed the gun from our safe and shot Travis before he could strangle me. It hit him right in the head, so he died instantly. When I was questioned at the hospital, I was asked if Natalie could have been aiming at me, and I said I didn't know. Details of the infidelity, a video of them having sex, and my revenge video were handed over as evidence. Police arrested her for questioning, and she was eventually charged with attempted murder and manslaughter. There was enough evidence and motive that Natalie and Travis came to the house to kill me, and she killed him by accident. Natalie was left in custody because no one gave her money for bail. However, at her hearing, the prosecutor was convinced that she shot her lover to save me, and the charges were dropped. When she was released, the clerk from my lawyer's office handed her the divorce papers. She did not challenge the prenuptial agreement, which stated that if Natalie cheated, she was only entitled to the money and assets she brought into the marriage. She returned to her parents, where all her things had already been sent, including all our photographs, including the wedding ones. I didn't want to see them anymore. As soon as the divorce was finalized, Rochelle moved in with me. I've made it clear that I want an exclusive relationship, but I don't know how I feel about remarriage. Rochelle said it was just a legal formality, and living with me was all she wanted. After no contact with Natalie after the confrontation, 3 weeks after our divorce was final, her father called me and said Natalie wanted to talk in person. She chose my cabin as the location on Saturday, as the school year started again, at least for me, since no school district would hire her now. I agreed, although Rochelle was very worried that it was a ploy to get her claws into me or kill me. I told Rochelle that I would never betray her, and Natalie could easily kill me if she wanted to already. Eventually, Rochelle compromised, and I took her to a diner about an hour away from the cabin. When the conversation ended, I came to pick her up, and we left together. When I arrived, Natalie was sitting on the step, wearing old ripped jeans and a loose blue blouse that looked 2 sizes too big. I couldn't help but notice that she was driving an old hatchback and not a van. Her face had filled out a little, and her hair was now cut very short, almost like a buzz cut. And yet I thought she was beautiful. A little out of the way to do that, don't you think? I said. I wanted to make sure the place was far enough away that we would both want to end the conversation. Natalie said. I pointed to her head. I like new clothes, completely different from what you wore before. It was actually a necessity. Let's just say the incident happened while I was in custody awaiting a hearing, Natalie said flatly. Look, since you have a lot of time to think about everything, I don't blame you for your reaction, not even the wasps. Natalie smiled forcedly. Now I know that I hurt you more than you hurt me. That's why it was so important to talk about it. I turned around and looked at her car. This is also new. Yeah, well, I had to get rid of it for the same reason you didn't want it. Too many memories. Natalie stood up and shrugged with a nervous smile. Maybe we can do this somewhere more comfortable. Instead of going in, we sat at a table on the terrace. Natalie continued to look at her hands. I saw that she was still wearing her wedding ring. I took mine off the day she killed our marriage. Wally, I can't put into words how sorry I am. Nothing should have gone the way it did. How was it supposed to go? I coldly said. Well, yeah, that asshole got his way, and your girlfriend seduced me, so I'm okay with that. No, wait, you entertain him behind my back, and then your girlfriend seduces me like it's my fault, and then you have sex with him to get back at me. If I had my way, you would never know, Natalie said quietly, but Travis said it would be better this way. After thinking about it, I know that he didn't care about my marriage. He just wanted to humiliate you and made sure that I kept my promise. He just wanted Rochelle there so he could use her against you. So, you and Rochelle are together now? Natalie wiped her eyes. We live together. She's waiting for me at Peggy's diner now. Natalie made a strange face and shrugged. I will give this house to you. Rochelle isn't much of a camper, and I didn't feel like going back after that trip. You can keep it or sell it and keep the money as you wish. Natalie half smiled. Thank you, I'll sell it and use the money. To be honest, I didn't really like camping either. A little lie to make you love me more. I really enjoyed doing these things with you, but it was because I was alone with you. I think if that's all, I have to go. I really hope you have a good life, Wally. And if things don't work out for you with Rochelle, I hope you find me. If I'm free, at least we can quickly reminisce about the good old days. Thank you, I said sincerely. When she got in the car and drove away, I felt like I had finally closed that chapter of my life. Looking back, I don't think there was anything I could have done to prevent the end of our marriage. Travis manipulated Natalie too much. It would have happened one way or another. I began a new phase of my life. I found a life with Rochelle, who knew how to make me feel completely loved without physical intimacy. Don't get me wrong, sex with Rochelle is great, but I didn't realize until she did that Natalie needed physical intimacy to express her love. As I moved on with my life, I really hoped that she could do the same. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think click to the next one.